But based on that value, it becomes the new market value. Okay. Now another one, discounted cash flow. So we forecast what will happen, the future value of the company. Okay. And based on the future value, we are going to decide, okay, how much your thing is going to worth. So this is how we form the basis. So when we do that, there's a thing called pre-money valuation. Okay. So what's pre-money valuation? Okay, the value of a company before your funding. Okay. So now, just bear in mind, we are the one who determine the next round. Okay, we are the one who determine my company value. So today, I have a brand new company. The company was formed brand new, nothing, just formed 10 minutes ago. Okay, you can go online, set up a company 10 minutes ago, and Nash and myself, we both pump in $1, and Nash put in $1 to make it 50-50. Now, bear in mind, our paid up is a function of the percentage that we want to create. Okay, the two of us, to make 50-50, he pay $1, I pay $1. To make 70-30, Nash pays $7, I pay $3. So this, you use the minimum amount of money, hashtag minimum amount of money, to set up a company to reflect the composition that you want to design. Okay, so we do that. Now, let's say I want to own 17%. How much should I start? Now, in shares, you don't have a 0.1 shares. It's always a round number, a whole number. So 17%, I must have 17 shares. So I have to start a $100 company. I cannot do a 17% with a $10 company. I cannot do $1.70 because $1.70 is not a number, not a whole number. So I will have to use a $100 company, right? If I want to do 17.5%, I have to do a $1,000 company. I issue 175 shares for myself to create 17.5%. Okay, so just bear in mind that we form a company based on that. Now, so Nash and myself form a new company, and I need to raise money. I need to raise $1 million, okay, for 10%. How many of you here is willing to invest $1 million for 10% to a brand new company? None of you, right? So, because you can't see the potential, but the story is not finished yet. Nash and myself just got a license to plant marijuana, okay, for the drugs, for medical. Okay, so we are going to do CBD oil and so on. So we have just got a license to plant marijuana. How many of you wants to invest $1 million for 10%? Now, do you realize one thing? Just now, before we tell you that what we want to do, right? There's no value. But once we have a game plan, a storyline, there's a new value. So we have just called a valuation of $10 million. Am I right? Because we say 10%, $1 million. So we are calling, we are the valuer. I told you we are the best valuer for our own company. This is what we call willing buyer, willing seller. We are willing to give away 10% for $1 million.
10% là $1 triệu, ok? Và đây là cái chúng ta hình thành là cái quy chế gọi là tiền tiền cấp ở sau, rót vốn sau, ok? Vậy thì pre-money là trước khi góp vốn, ok? Vậy thì chúng ta sẽ thấy là với tất cả các cái ý tưởng của tôi đó thì cái giá trị của nó phải là $9 triệu, ok? Và tổng thể của nó sẽ là $10 triệu. Và như vậy cái định giá trước khi mà cấp vốn nó giúp cho chúng ta định giá trước khi mà phát hành cổ phiếu, ok? Vậy thì sau đó là cái số tiền mà được bơm vào, tức là số tiền mà chúng ta muốn kêu gọi, ok? Vậy thì để giúp cho các bạn dễ dàng thì tất cả những cái mà chúng ta suy nghĩ ở đây, ok? Chúng ta thấy 1 cộng 2 là bằng cái định giá sau khi mà chúng ta được cấp vốn, ok? Vậy thì
now, why this is important? Let's say just now I told you that I wanted to have 10%, $1 million. So essentially, I'm calling a post money of $10 million. But I'm raising $1. So I want $1 million. So essentially, I'm calling a pre-money of $9 million. Is it possible that I failed to raise by $1 million? I managed to raise only $500,000. So finally, my post money will be 9.5 million. So that's the function of why we do the pre-money as well. Okay. So the key difference, pre-money, post-money differ in timing of the valuation. So pre-money is before the funding, and post-money, right, including the financing of the latest capital injection. So it is a critical concept in valuation because the moment someone invests in you, you create a valuation. When no one invests in you, there's no valuation. So there are a few things we have to understand. Okay. So the first one to understand is a concept called net worth. Okay. So that we are measuring you by net worth. We don't measure you by how many cars you own and so on. Now the other thing is that valuation, we can look on a valuation based on cost approach, relative value means look at some transaction, or intrinsic value approach. And another concept that we have to look at is pre-money and post-money. Now, I want to highlight the problem that we face, that you are going to face as entrepreneur or even as investor, when we look at the difference between accountant and corporate finance. I'm very much corporate finance. I teach corporate finance at the university and also at the polytechnics and so on. I write the curriculum. And in the world of corporate finance, people like us look into the future. Okay, accountants look into the past. Hashtag accountant look into the past. They record the past. They record what has happened. Okay, corporate finance look at the crystal ball. Okay, they are actually like gypsy, or they are like Andi Nujum, Pak Belalang, okay, in Malay. So they are the people who look into the future. Okay? So people like us, we look into the potential of the company. Now, looking into the past for me has no use. It gives us some idea. They do not guarantee me that you are going to perform. But instead, I look into the future. So since we look into the future, what do? We plan. We plan ahead. We are the one we plan the next action. Okay. Now, this is a fundamental difference. Let's say Nash, okay, and General Joe, okay. Nash have 50% of company A, and Joe have 50% of company A. Dr. Wong have 50% of company B, and Joe invested in both of us. Joe have 50% company B. Okay, so this is what we have. So we have company A and company B. Now we both set up a company for 100,000. Okay, Joe and Dr. Wong also set 100,000. So we all record, we set a company. But we all know that 100,000 was not, is not enough. Okay, was not the figure that we want. We need to have more money to start the business. So we decided to have another 100,000. Okay, so that we have $1 million in our bank. So it looks the same. Nash, okay, fork out 50,000. Joe fork out 50,000. Now they find another 900,000 to make it $1 million. Dr. Wong fork out 50,000. Joe fork out 50,000. And we found another 900,000 to make $1 million. Okay, but the problem is that we use a different approach. Okay, here Nash took a 900,000 loan, okay, to make it $1 million, and I diluted 10% for 900,000 to make it $1 million, right? So I dilute 10% of my shares, okay, to do that. Now diluting is a process of adding new shares, so the percentage actually dilute by 10%. Okay, so what happened? Let's look carefully at company A. You have 100,000. You took on a negative 900,000 position. So although you have $1 million in the bank, your net worth or the market cap net worth is negative 800,000, right? So essentially, Nash will be negative 400,000. Joe will be negative 400,000. Now this is exactly what is happening, right? As a new startup. Okay. Now compare this to what I do. I dilute 10% for 900,000. So my value is $9 million. I created a concept called a net worth, okay, a market cap. a market capitalization, which generate into individual like me, okay, will have a net worth. So Dr. Wong will have 50% of, okay, we dilute 10% times 0.9 of 9 million. And Joe will have 50% times 0.9 of 9 million. That means that I have 45% of 9 million, Joe will have 45% of 9 million, the angel who put in the 900K have 10% of the 9 million. Okay, so essentially my value become 4.05 million. 4.05 million. So my net worth, okay, I told you I want to talk about net worth. The net worth that was resultant of this whole process. Now, business is business. That's called market mechanism. Hashtag market mechanism. That's the business. Now, this part is capital mechanism. Hashtag capital mechanism. So here, I've created one process in a short span of maybe 3 months. When I formed the company, I do up my bank account, I wrote the business plan, I prepare everything. Now my value is 4 million. Joe is 4 million, 4.05 million. Okay. Now you can see how powerful this is because compare these two. Both companies have 1 million cash to play with. Okay, and we create that. Now this is how people like Jack Ma, this is how people like Bill Gates, this is how they become so rich. This is how Elon Musk becomes so rich, right? Because if you don't do this, you can never be a high net worth. Now, imagine working on this same concept. Wow, great idea. What happened if Dr. Wong now start to invest into company A, company B, company C, company D, E, and F, right? We hold 50% each. And each company dilute 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. What will happen? In 3 months, I'll be worth 24.3 million. So this is a very powerful in MOC, very cost of capital. One part of game theory that we talk about, we'll play that. And this is how Fatana, my investment company, is how we built tremendous amount of value. Now the business has to go on, right? I'm saying that you have a big assumption that you have very matured this market mechanism. So we are building a layer of capital mechanism on top of the market mechanism. So that's what we do, right? You get the idea? So there were a few key ideas. So we say that this net worth that we talk about is created because of a technique, this technique. Okay. Now, we all know that during this COVID, there are some companies that did very well. It's called a rubber glove, right? Nitrile glove. So Malaysia happened to have about the global largest nitrile glove of all in Malaysia. So did all the companies do well? No. The one who did very well are the listed company. The rest of the nitrile glove company, they are very busy. They are doing business. They're not even doing business. They're doing business. They're all very busy, right? So, but for the guy who are listed, they're creating tremendous amount of value. Now, if you understand this, you will understand how Jeff Bezos became the richest man in the world. This will also explain to you why Malaysian Daim Zainuddin or Syed Mokhtar Al-Bukhari become so rich. They have nothing to do with the projects that you do or the crudism or whatever. It is the methodology that you apply to do it. This is how people like Gojek, Tokopedia, this is how people like Grab, this is how Uber, all these guys become big. Okay, so if you understand this concept, then the company, first of all, here you see, the company by the dilution will generate the valuation. So recently, Karsam, right, the car company, the Karsam actually become a unicorn because their dilution affected will create the valuation. If I can dilute 1% for 900,000, it becomes 90 million. If I dilute 0.1% for 900,000, it becomes 900 million. If I do a 0.01% for 900,000, I become a $9 billion unicorn, right? But we do not dilute in such a way that you do not have enough money to do your projects. So this concept is very powerful for Invesco. Now, that's how companies like Sequoia Capital, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, all these have become so big, right? That's how Investec in South Africa become big. So you must understand how the game is played. So many of us are not playing the right game. So many of the startup with all the right mentor and coaches still cannot become big because they do not know the technique. So Gary was saying that maybe we use the right technique, we could have created 5 to 6 unicorns from Africa itself. Let's look at the fundraising. Okay. Now, let's say we choose one. I'll choose Uber, right? Uber, right? You look carefully. Now they were doing well. They raised funds. Shoo! Okay, over this period of time, they become 19.4 billion. They were doing market mechanism. Now they raise fund, capital mechanism. They become 40 billion, right? They do market mechanism, and they raise fund again. And every time they raise fund, they become 68 billion at IPO, right? The same thing with Airbnb, the red one, right? You are doing busy. You raise funds, your value goes up, 25.2 B. You're busy. Then you see, you're busy, you don't raise fund, it's still the same. Until you raise fund, they become bigger, right? So this is how the things work. So you look carefully, there's a thing called the valuation. Every time you raise fund, the value goes up. Look at the Uber. Now, does Uber make money? No, they have not made profit yet. So how did they generate the valuation? The valuation is generated from the fundraising, right? So I told you that there's a two-track. In all businesses, there are two tracks. We are all focused on one single track. That's called the market mechanism. The buying, the selling, the production, the marketing, okay, the delivery, all this, the market, the things that what we do. Sadly, most of the CEOs, CFO and CEO, they only knows how to do the market mechanism. Now, the other part, the investment guy, okay, they are coming in. They are all the capital mechanism, right? You know, it's very scary. In 2007, Communist Party of China says that China will move based on capital mechanism. So it was in that basis that I was invited to write the curriculum for China companies. And you know what? Even communists created so many unicorns because they know the technique. So if you do not use the technique, you can never create unicorns. But if we use the technique correctly, we can create unicorns. And it has nothing to do with profit yet. Okay? Amazon took more than 10 years before they become profitable. Right? I remember Amazon was such a scary proposition. When I first saw the IPO prospectus of Amazon, they say that we are losing money and we will continue to lose money in the foreseeable future. I mean, the prospectus tell you that we are losing money and we are going to continue losing money in the foreseeable future. Right? So again, the function of all this is in the confidence level. Who is actually confident enough to support you? So in China, some of the biggest players are not Chinese. Okay, Morgan Datong is JP Morgan. They are the biggest in China. Hongshan Zhiben is Sequoia Capital. Hongshan means Sequoia. Okay, Hongshan Zhiben, right? And you go to Peishi is Blackstone, Ruanying, SoftBank. Not a single one is actually a China company. So despite communists say how good they are, not a single big player. Now, if this thing can work, this means every one of you can build a Temasek. Every one of you can build a Khazanah. Every one of you can build a Qatari Dia. Every one of you can build a Brunei investment agency. In other words, if you use the right technique, you can be as big, if not bigger than them. Now, let's look at a strategic application of valuation. Now, there's a value. As you go up, it's get higher value. This is time. Now, many of us, we start off with 100,000, right? Let's say we start off 100,000. We do business go up and down. We work hard. Sometimes we go up, sometimes we go down, right? And we took a loan, as usual. Okay, we go up and down. So we are now in debt. So from equity cycle, #equity cycle, we entered into #debt cycle, DEBT, DEBT, debt cycle. So now we are in a debt cycle. So what do? We struggle. And not only we got the loan, we took an overdraft. Oh my God, OD, right? And we took another loan. Now, this is very typical. most companies, this is all they know. They felt that the only guy have money in the world, apart from their father or their mother, which don't have too much, is actually the bank. Now, that's the reason why when the bank will give you a loan, you feel very dejected, you feel upset. Now, this because of your knowledge. So after a while, you know who they met? Their business was going down. They met a guy called private equity. People like me, private equity. So I'm very happy, you know, why? Wow, this guy have track record, right? So what we do? We have to prepare you for IPO. We restructure your firm. We build a new company. And what do? Now with this new company, we structure correctly, we rebuild it again, we grow. And finally, we created a value one. So a long time. So as far as the P is concerned, we join it at this point. So we are happy that you reach this point. And we prepare all the documents, we go for IPO. And IPO, we push your value from V1 to V2. Pop, a new value is created. So essentially, most Asian and also maybe African or even for European, they didn't know anything about things. They were very happy with this new post-money valuation. Wow, I go IPO. Look, my current valuation is this. I IPO, I become rich. Now, that's the thing that many people think that after IPO, I become rich. And after that, life goes on for normal. Okay, and people like me, we left. Okay, now let's look carefully at this V1 to V2. So there was this ramp up of valuation from V1 to V2. Right, and the money that we raised, the minus of that is called pre-money valuation. So we raised a little bit of money, but we managed to push your value from here to here. Now this is essentially what happened in all the stock exchange, whether it's Johannesburg Stock Exchange or Jakarta Stock Exchange or Bursa Kuala Lumpur or Hong Kong Stock Exchange or even New York or Nasdaq. So many entrepreneurs, because of their ignorance, they've been doing this and they try to become world class. It is very difficult, right? And this valuation, the ramp up in British Commonwealth is tax free. Okay? So that's what happened. Now for me, this is the investor, right? The ramp up. But for PE, I'm happy because I entered here and I got away with V2, value 2. So I got a bit more. And the capital gain was from 100K for the founder, 100K to V2. So it's capital gain, tax free. So they are quite happy because, well, we do that. Now, sadly, most people are very happy with this. And they think that they are super, I'm a listed company boss. And they lack a thing called humility. If only they would learn how to listen. And you know what's the worst part? Their children, who they are this company boss, this is the reality that they hope the children will understand. Right? And the children, my dad taught me, you know, you can do all these things, but you could be wrong. Now let's look at what happened in California. Now we do the same thing. We start off with 100,000. Okay? We work hard, same. I mean, even you don't do fundraising, you still work as hard. And we raise fund. These are V1 to V2. Right? So we prepare the same thing, the investment memorandum. Okay, we do the same roadshow. Last time, you know, the only time they did a roadshow was here, right? Because they want to raise fund, so they prepare prospectus. Okay, they were trying to raise fund, they do a roadshow. So in the whole life, they did one. So for Californian, okay, so what we do, we start a company, we prepare a document from the onset. Okay. We built this whole thing, and we captured in this whole thing from here to here, captured in the thing called the financial roadmap. Okay, so we do not know how much capitalized yet, but at least we know the financial roadmap. We are calling a V2 and the Series A. Right, and what do? We continue to work hard. Come on, man, money is just money. After you get the money, what do? You have to work harder. Right? It's not that you get money. Some people celebrate because we raise fund. Yeah. That's only the capital. You still need to do the business. So from the capital mechanism, you need to do the market mechanism, right? So what do? You raise fund again, Series B, right? So from B3 become B4, right? Series B, and after that you work hard again, right? And what do? After you got Series B, you go for Series C. So V5 to V6. Do you realize that each one of these is actually a small IPO? And it could be bigger than your IPO. In fact, usually it's much bigger than your IPO. Right? Because your IPO, you're raising something like 30 million, 50 million, 70 million. Every round we do, we raise 100 million. We raise 125 million. Every round, right? And here we do another IPO itself. IPO. So from V7 become V8. Okay. The only reason why I do IPO because I don't have enough space to draw. Okay. So I do it. So we try to raise fund. Hashtag. If you raise fund, people subscribe in full. What you do? Raise fund again. And people subscribe. Raise fund again. Series F, Series G, Series H, Series J, K, Series L. Until no one subscribe. Okay, it's become very hard to raise fund, then you IPO. Means if you find it easy to raise fund, continue raising fund, building the new valuation, because each time you build, a new valuation is created. Now look carefully, the V2, V4, V6, V8. These are the one we captured in the financial roadmap, right? The V2, the V4, the V6, the V8. You know what? Who determined the V6? Who determined the V4? Who determined the V2? You. You are the one who decides on the valuation. I told you, you are the best guy to do the valuation, right? So that is why it is important for us to understand the basis of valuation, right? And okay, this is not the valuation. It is because after you call the valuation, there's a corresponding KPI, right? You decide how many stories you want to build, then we, the engineer, decide how much foundation we have to go through, okay? Or how much car park we have to comply. So the KPI is determined by the valuation that you call. Now, then we build based on the budget. A budget now is drawn to support the KPI. You don't do a budget by plugging a figure from the sky and put into a spreadsheet. A lot of people, you want the budget, what do? They ask the accountant, and what do the accountant do? They just plug a figure from the sky. And how can that correspond? So all the budget must tie in with your financial roadmap. And the financial roadmap is your blueprint, it's your master plan for the company. And as a director, I set the goal. The CEO must prepare this master plan. Okay, that's called a business plan. And from there, all this will be captured. So a lot of times we have the CXO, the CEO, CFO, and CEO who do not know their scope. Okay, so with this, let's compare to the other company, right, who went through the IPO. Can you see is sky and earth? How far is the difference? So most people, they think that they are doing very well. They feel arrogant, right? They think that they already know everything about IPO. And I saw that a lot in the old money. Now, these are the tech firms, and they are building tremendous valuation. And of course, this guy will go IPO at 150 million ringgit or 300 million, right? They cannot even reach 150 million. How can they become unicorn? Right? People like us will put a 4 billion ringgit or 1 billion US dollar because we built things like this, right? So essentially, all these guys, okay, have become elite, right? And they have done one thing in common. They have all listed the company, right? If they do not list the company, they will not be able to become big tycoons. So let's look at valuation methodologies. A business valuation is the process, okay, and a set of procedure. So we do to estimate the economic value of an owner's interest in the business. So we want to just look at what type of potential value that can be derived from working with you. Valuation is used by financial market to determine the price they are willing to pay for the business or for the shares. So this is what we do. Okay. So if we can understand valuation, it will make us easy to do something. So most of the time, your company is good, yes, but it's dirty. Your account is not well kept. You never keep minutes of meeting. You may have debt. You may have others, a commitment, right? And all these are actually causing the company to be not attractive. We call that not sexy. So for most of the time, we need to rebuild a company called a special purpose vehicle. This means this is the company that will go for IPO. This company is designed to capture the maximum valuation we can do. Okay. Now the SPV is the place that we want to capture the maximum value. Okay. So maybe designed by an SPV may be designed for independent ownership, management, and funding of a company. So we are designing it for funding of your project. It serves as a protection, okay, of a project from operational or insolvency issues. Sometimes your company may have court case and so on. So this is very important because it allows us to earmark an entity that's clean, okay, so that we can speedy IPO process. So to structure it correctly is something that we have to learn in the subsequent lectures, right? So it also masks the crucial information, so we can decide what info we're going to give to other guys and what info we do not want to give. Okay, so you only need to disclose, okay, to people that you need to disclose. Even investors, they may not be privy of the whole company situation. Like you are an investor to buy a shares in Maybank. Maybank is not obliged to tell you their business model. They're not obliged to tell you their strategies. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we are not told as shareholders as well. Same thing here. Okay, you must understand we are officer of a company. We are holding privy information. Now think of you as a shareholder as the citizen of a country. As a citizen of a country, right? We have this thing called the people. Then you selected the board of directors or the member of parliament, right? Then we selected a group of people called the executive. Am I right? So the prime minister and so on. Okay, so these are the CEO, CFO, and CEO. And we have all the government servant and the military and so on. Now the military have a game plan. Would the military expose the game plan to the guy who owned the country called the citizen? No. Now, we are the executive. Would the executive expose our business model to shareholders? No. Okay, so that we have certain privy information that we may not disclose to you, right? So, but we need to relook into the company, the risk and so on. So let's look at some of the valuation methodologies for startup. Okay, so I'm focusing on startup. Now, there was this angel investor called David Berkus, so we call the Berkus valuation method. It involves a lot of estimation, and it is used a lot in pre-revenue companies. So tomorrow you do a startup. Let's say Muiza wants to do a new startup, right? So that she wants to do a deal for health and education. So there's something new. So there's no revenue yet. It's a new company. So what we do, we use Berkus valuation method. So essentially, we have an eyeball approach. Eyeball means we just scan, we just look. Okay, means we use a very much gut feel approach. So there are 5 components as startup. Each one we give them $500,000. So we're going to give $500,000 value to each one of them. So the first one is that, is the idea sound? Does the idea sound okay to you? Okay, for example, let's say I say that my idea is to have agriculture on the moon. Is it a sound idea? Now, for you, may not be sound, but for people like Elon Musk, he may think it's a sound idea, right? So he may agree. Or I say that I do mining under the sea to look for rare earth, rare metal under the sea. Okay, you know that after how many meters is hard for a human being to control, but I'm using robots. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Or I do mining on the moon. Now, this weather idea is sound. It's a measurement of your aura, your energy aura. What may not be sound to you may be sound to other guy. So we will only invest in the thing that fit our energy level or energy aura. Right? Why did I say energy aura? Now, when Harry Potter says that we'll jump across the canyon, I said, huh? How to jump across the canyon? But for him, it's a sound idea because he has the ability to jump. But for me, I'm overweight, I'm obese, I can't jump. So based on his aura or his energy threshold, he can do it. Based on me, cannot do it. So we must understand soundness of idea is all by estimation. That's why we say the eyeball approach. Now the other one, technology. Do you have a prototype? If you have an idea, you have a prototype. I have this a new prototype made of glass that I can use on the moon, right? So this is the thing that I'm using armor glass. Okay? So if you have a prototype, it reduces the risk. I give you $500,000. So I put $500,000 on the idea, $500,000 here. And if you have management team, so a management team will give you another $500,000. So it is important for you to write a CV of your team. Okay, so we can see in the group people are writing CVs now. Now this is important because having a correct team. What's the team member? At least 3: CEO, CFO, COO, chairman of the board. Okay, and maybe independent directors and the red dots. Okay, so you have at least 6 guys if you can, or 5. So that will give you the kind of value. And do you have strategic relationship? That's why we sign MOU. We sign MOU, although MOU is useless, but we still sign it, right? Because it gives a framework. Okay, and then we sign MOA if we think that is workable, memorandum agreement. So the understanding. So understanding is I understand you, you understand me is nothing. But this gives us a framework. It is useful because it gives me $500,000 US valuation, right? So, and finally, can I roll out? If I have a ability to do it now, okay? So let's say I'm doing something traditional kind of tidbits called kachapote tidbits. I can go to a plant to buy from them and I pack them. So I can do rollout. Means I am worth $500,000 valuation. So you look carefully. So Brooker's method, each one of them will be worth $500,000. So I can get up to 2.5 million. Okay, theoretically 2.5 million. That's about 12 million ringgit. Okay, or at least you can get up to 11 or 12 million ringgit valuation, or US 2.5 million valuation just from this estimation. The other one is the risk summation method. Okay, so they are estimate initial value and adjust the same value for 12 risk factor. So I think that Harriet Botta has a project. He's thinking the estimate value is about 3 million. Okay, I agree, it's about 3 million. So every time we look at 12 factor, if the factor is very positive, we will add $500,000. Right? If maybe a $250,000, right? And if nothing is neutral, 0, minus $250,000, minus $500,000 is negative. Okay, so let's say just now was 3 million, right? We proposed 3 million. So the first one is that management risk, right? If this thing needs someone very specialized, and the management can resign, or you cannot get the people. If there's a management risk, we minus maybe $250,000, right? If this is very terrible, it is a lot of scientists, nuclear scientists, and they cannot get them, maybe I minus off $500,000. So a management risk. What about business stage, the phasing? What phase are you in now? I call phase 0, okay, proof of concept. So, well, it's still early, or you're very advanced, I can give $500,000. So just now 3 million minus 250,000, 2.75 million. And now I look at the business stage, it's quite advanced, I give $500,000. So it's 3.25 million now. The project is actually held in maybe Somalia. Somalia, political risk. Okay, I'm going to minus $500,000. So now I drop again from 3.25 million, now become 2.75 million because of the political risk. Or Afghanistan. Okay. Now manufacturing risk. Okay. Now manufacturing risk can also means that can it be copied? Now China have a lot of R&D, but where do they test the R&D? They did not send it to Shanghai. They will send it to Singapore because they're afraid that when they send for testing, right, it get copied. So Singapore benefited tremendously as a safe place because a lot of R&D in China was sent to Singapore for testing, right? All your technology thing have to have the C, the CE, and all the approval, all the little logo that you do, right? They have to do it. So manufacturing may have risks. Right, if you manufacture in China, there's the risk. You manufacture maybe in the places like America, probably your manufacturing risk is lower. Sales and revenue risk and capital raising. Can you raise fund? Some place they are like, if you are having a project in a place like Mauritius, is it hard to raise fund? No, it's quite easy because most of the India money is in Mauritius. But if you have a project in Brunei, try to raise fund there, it's difficult because Brunei only have their own funds. They don't have for other countries' fund. But if you have a project in Singapore or in Hong Kong, capital raising risk is very, very low because it's easy to raise fund, right? Then competition risk, technology risk, litigation risk. If you're in States, litigation risk is very, very high, right? Technology risk, you can get obsolete because of technology, right? So these are the things that we look at. And also international risk, when you go international, reputation risk, okay, people try to smear reputation and so on, and exit potential. So these are the 12 factors that we will each give $500,000 for maximum or minus $500,000 to get the valuation based on the base valuation of 3 million that we started off. Now, scorecard valuation method, this is a card, right? So we look at a base valuation and adjust a set of criteria. And criteria, we look at weightage and impact. Now, what's weightage? I always like this whole thing about insurance, right? You know what's the weightage like? Is it easier for us to get an air crash or a car accident? Which one is more, car accident or air crash? Car accident, but which impact is bigger in your mind, right? Do you know more people die in car accident than air crash? But then we think the air crash is, wow, the impact, the weightage is very big, that the impact. So again, sometimes the psychological impact is greater than the actual number, right? Okay. So for usually again a base valuation that adjusts for criteria, pre-revenue, company before they have revenue. Now we also call this under Bill Payne method, 6 criteria. Management form 30%, opportunity 25%, product or services 10%. Look, management is so important, human being is so important. Sales channel 10%, stage of business 10%, other factors 15%. So do you realize that in most of the criteria, management play a very important role. It is very important for us to train and select our management team, right? If you don't have, steal or borrow, okay, your management team. So this is what we do, right? And okay, so what does that mean? Means we can actually do a valuation criteria, 30% of that, and the impact weightage of the value that we want to put at. And here, there's another comparable transaction. Okay, so you find a good proxy. So if I do real estate, I found the other real estate firm. So what do we compare? We compare for pre-revenue and post-revenue company. We compare maybe software as a services, monthly recurring revenue. Okay, so if we have X number of people, we do that. Or he have 80 staff, I have 80 staff, I have 70 staff. So you look at a comparison. Or let's say I'm a retail outlet, I have 45 outlets, there are 60 outlets. So I should be around maybe 75% of their value. So you look at compare that. And for biotech, how many patents that you file, or how many something special that you have. Or active user. Many people say they don't want to create an app. But for me, it's not just a download. How many people is active? What's the point of spending money doing the app, right? So there was this training company who wanted to spend money to build the app, right? And they will spend something like 200,000 to build a very good app. I said, forget it. If your app cannot beat Zoom, use Zoom. Use Zoom to teach. Use Zoom to teach your student. Don't underestimate the kid. The kid probably use the software better than you, right? So, and Zoom keep on upgrading themselves. The money you save is better than you use it for other things. So a lot of people build apps that no one download. The sad thing is that if you're less than 2 million download, you are nobody. One day, there was this listed company boss from Singapore. He came to office of iReward. And he was quite nasty, right? The way he talked, how can all these things like Grab, stupid company Grab, right? Where got people hail a cab, right? And they charge $1 each. So he was upset. He was talking. So what do? I listened. When he finished talking, I think he spent at least 20 minutes talking. So I told him that, you know what's the problem? So you are thinking of your method. Grab has the biggest download in Indonesia. Grab has the biggest download in Singapore. The app. There's no app having more download from this region than that. Grab has the biggest download in Malaysia. Grab has one of the biggest download in Vietnam. And they're going to have the biggest download in Thailand and the biggest download in Philippines soon. Right? And what do? They add one thing called GrabPay or OVO. That's all. So we don't look at the number of things. We talk about the weekly active user. Active user is so important. Right? It's not the number of download. So when we compare profit and loss, margin, before tax, and all, we look at all the indicators we compare. Now, this one is a book value method. I don't like it, but I don't mind. Especially want to acquire someone, I like them to use the book value, right? Because it is a raw deal for the company. Accountants use a lot of these sort of things, but I think it's a very stupid thing, right? Because you buy a Rolls Royce today, you sell it tomorrow, you lose money. You start a production line today, right? Tomorrow you close down the factory, all the production line goes by how many kg of metal. It's just raw metal, right? So it's not so much tangible value for me. Now, liquidation value method is very important. So we estimate all the tangible assets, or again tangible, say that there's a key, the real estate equipment inventory, right? So you apply when you get out of business. But
dựa theo cái này để xem coi là trong trường hợp chúng ta thoát ra là như thế nào. Nhưng mà chúng ta phải xem coi là hàng tồn kho có bao nhiêu thì phải tìm được người mua trong vòng chưa tới 2 tháng. Nếu như mà chúng ta có hàng tồn kho mà không bán được trong vòng 2 tháng thì được xem là không có giá trị, bởi vì nó chả có giá trị hết các bạn ạ. Cho nên quan trọng nữa là chúng ta phải xem cái phương pháp giá trị thanh khoản để xem chúng ta có bán được không. Không bán được thì mình phải coi như là bán đồ đồng nát rồi, nên là giá nó quá rẻ rồi, bởi vì nếu mình để trong nhà kho vân vân là bị tốn kém thêm chi phí các kiểu. Ok, và chúng ta phải sử dụng cái thông số này để đánh giá rủi ro đầu tư, bởi vì nếu mà gì đó mà mất thời gian quá lâu mới bán được thì cái rủi ro nó cao hơn. Nếu mà các bạn có thể bán dễ dàng thì chúng ta gọi đó là.
Now this is discounted cash flow method. This is used a lot in the accounting and used a lot in the business school. Okay, so the sum of the future cash flow. So the formula is very simple. It says that discounted cash flow for A is the cash flow for A over the rate over the X number of years. So the present value means the value, today's value of money, is a cash flow, discounted cash flow 1 plus 2 until the terminal value. The PV is terminal value. So this is what they do. I don't like this at all because I don't like maths. Okay? So now, if there's an indefinite cash flow, because you can keep on getting a cash flow, so you also take growth into expectation. So same thing, you also have terminal value, right? And if you exceed after X number of years, so the terminal value will be given that. Now for me, this is no use because this one you can just get your ask your CFO to get the accountant or whoever to help you on this whole thing, because it don't give me a good value. It is like a residual value, right? You're selling things based on the kg. You're buying a fish that's going to rot, and over the years it's getting a rot. It's not going to be salted fish, and it has no value. Okay, so what do we do? Right, I prefer this one, first Chicago method. Now this method, I have raised so much fun. Okay, so you make 3 valuation. Okay, the first one is worst case scenario, 20% possibility times value 1, worst case scenario. Okay, for example, let's say I think that recession, my value will be say 10 million. Okay, worst case 6 million, best case 12 million. Okay, so worst case 6 million times 20% chance. Normal case 10 million, 70% chance. Best case 12 million, 10% chance. So I just times this whole thing, okay, and find the average that, right? So, but this one a lot of controversy because 70% is normal case, 20% worst case, 10% best case. So when I was in CommerceNet, I realized that this one is very positive. So I do a 50-50. Normal case, 50-50. Worst case 30, best case 20. Same, right? 2-to-1 ratio. But I reduce the normal case to 50%. And because of this, the weighted average, I have managed to raise so much fund because people feel that, well, fair, 50%, you get it or you don't get it. Then the other worst case, best case. So we can get a very good valuation. So when you do a valuation, you can use this method. So it's the first Chicago method, right? So I adjusted the ratio for CommerceNet Singapore. Now, venture capital method is something that people like me use a lot from viewpoint of investor. It's very much from investor viewpoint. We look at specific return, how many times multiple, how many PE ratio, we call that, right? So I think that your IPO maybe is 20 times PE. I'd like to get in at maybe 7 times or 8 times, or acquire someone at 7 to 8 times PE ratio, right? So let's say I anticipate that you exceed 100 million. So we anticipate that you exceed at a unicorn 1 billion or 100 million at a PE of 20 times, right? So we think that, well, if I have a multiple, earning multiple of 20 times, so I'm willing to look at a 5 million valuation post-money. And let's say you want to raise 1 million from me. So your pre-money is actually 4 million. So we are looking at that. So this is the one that I'm willing to pay you, okay? Why I'm willing to pay you this? Because I think that this is what you get. But in reality, people like me will probably push the exit much higher, but I won't tell you. I will agree on the upside that you asked for. Now, the 4 million say that you need to dilute 30%. So your pre-money valuation is actually 2.8 million. So I'm willing to look at your pre-money valuation of 2.8 million, and the rest of what I pay will make the new valuation, right? To make it 4 million. So this is a VC method that we use. Now, pre-money valuation refers to the value of a company, not including the funding that's coming in, right? It's best described as how much a startup might be worth before it begins to receive any investment to the company. So this valuation will give investor an idea of the current value, okay? And post-money refer to the company is worth after I inject the money, okay? So because of my participation, I created that. Right? It has 2 components. There's a pre-money component and the money I put in. And that actually will make a call. Right? I told you the financial roadmap. So a FRM essentially is an application of post-money valuation. So financial roadmap, okay, refers to how much the company is worth after you receive money and investment into it. So the advantage of FRM is that it build or ramp up the valuation of the company. So we need to ramp, ramp it, RMPIT, ramp it. Okay. So what do? You ramp up the entire company structure, right? The motorcycle, you ramp up, right? What we call scrambler last time. Right? So special interest group is a common practice where companies set up SIG to handle needs of various interest groups. So valuation may be freeze in time or at the prevailing market valuation, allowing for great flexibility to founders. So what we do, we issue the shares first. Okay, so we issue the shares. I park in with maybe Peter, or I park in maybe with Eric, or I park in maybe with Nash, right? So this share has been frozen in time. The value that we buy is quite cheap. It's a founder value, right? So that we'll keep it, right? We can use it for many things. It's called a special interest group, right? Stock option scheme, ESOS. So these are also shares, okay? So the valuation here is very low because we actually took the company shares at the pre-dividend price for a specific period. So we keep the shares for the employee. So the stock option is different from the exchange control option because it is not traded between investors on the exchange. So we are actually holding the shares to allow us to have a flexibility to reward or also to play with the valuation of the company. So now if we can understand valuation, the few things that we have to conclude, number one, valuation depends on you. Remember, not the banker. I prove to you, a licensed valuer will give different value. An architect like me and an architect will all give you different answer. So an investment banker from Rashtriya Hossain Berhad, RHB Berhad, from Maybank Kim Eng, okay, or from Huang DBS, from UOB Kay Hian, or MIDF, okay, all will give you different valuation. So the best valuation must come from you. Now bear in mind that they are all service provider, #service provider. So their duty is to take instruction from you and to implement that. Right? They are not your boss. They are service provider. They are using your company to make a fee. So you push for the valuation that you want. And based on the valuation, we build the KPI, right? And we build the budget to do the KPI. And if you understand this, then valuation is very powerful. And valuation is, if you do not raise money, there's no valuation, right? A company that have never borrowed money will have no track record, will have no valuation. A person that have never borrowed money can never borrow money. So people like us have to borrow money from the bank to pay back the bank, okay, lose a bit of interest, okay, then to generate a financial track record so that we have a financial track record. So same thing, it is very important for us to understand that. So this set of slides will make available to you. The password will be Precession Capital. With this, I'll pass it back to Nash.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wong. Awesome. That was the session on valuation, basics of valuation, including valuation for startups. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take a group photo of the whole gang here tonight. 170 people of you here tonight. And please put your nice visuals. Okay, visuals. And then we're gonna do a quick breakout room exercise, which is very quickly. Okay. All right, Doctor.
Yep,
All right.
on the camera.
Okay, everybody, put on your camera.